How many properties earning how much per week would you need to acquire within your property portfolio in order to earn a passive income of $2,000 a week? And would this $2,000 a week income be during the length of the loan, say year 10 of the loan when it's negatively geared, or once loan is entirely paid off and all income coming from said property is positively geared? So pause your thoughts on that, Ben.
Yep.
Hugh Knit has asked this question. 2K is a great target. Is it possible, likely, for a couple to achieve this income individually as a goal? Granted that every couple would have their own set of specific financial income scenarios that impacts this goal. For example, a combined $2,000 each, Ben. So $4,000 total passive income. How rare is this to achieve?
Yeah, and normally in a perfect world, this is where I go to the whiteboard and sort of do all my drawings and so forth, but that's lost in radio land or podcast land. So I'll try and paint the picture really as simplistic as we possibly can here. Just imagine you had a portfolio of properties, 1, 2, 3 properties, and they were grossing you $100,000 a year in rent. So we keep it really simple. So that now at the moment, $100,000 a year in rent is potentially got some costs associated with it, i.e., what Samantha's talking about in regards to paying off the interest. So what you've got to look at doing is, as I build 1 property, 2 properties, 3 properties, what's the total gross income that I'm getting from those properties, assuming that rents will go up over time, and then what are your costs are for holding those properties. Now, over time, the goal is to build up offset funds, which reduce the amount of interest that you pay and eventually retire the debt. And then all of a sudden, your properties are then net of any interest cost, which is the biggest cost that you're holding. We still want you to provision for, as we said earlier, maintenance and upkeep and general expenses, and paying your property manager and so forth. So over time, you retire the debt out and the income keeps growing, and that's how you build it up. Now, of course, we can't all go out and buy 3 or 4 properties in one go. That's unrealistic. So the idea that it takes a period of time and you do it slowly is all about, okay, that first property I got has a $20,000 income base. That second property that I've got has a $20,000 income base. That third property that I've got, and in some cases, people are fortunate to buy properties that have a $30,000 income base to start with, or a $40,000 income base to start with. And that's all relative to their personal circumstances and being able to hold that investment property over the short, medium and longer term. So those people who have lower household income but higher commitments and a smaller surplus will be in that particular boat, where they might need more yield to start them off to keep their portfolio afloat, and then over time they will acquire assets, say every 5 or 6 years, sensibly, boringly over time. But those people who are in a better position, where they've got maybe stronger household incomes, more borrowing power, they can potentially move that from every 3 to 5 years into every sort of 18 to 24 months for that aggressive accumulation phase based on their risk profiles and so forth, and they can build that up quicker. So there is definitely opportunity here, but what we're saying is, when you think about it, that was just the property portfolio. When you also add in the income that's going to come from your super and any other investments that you may have undertaken, it's the combination of all those that we're working towards. We're not saying that it just has to be property that is going to be your only income source in retirement. That's not possible, because superannuation is compulsory. That's why it's called compulsory superannuation. So it's a combination of that money and how you treat that money in retirement that will, coming back to Mark's point, is the $2,000 that you are going to pay yourself to have that lifestyle whilst all that other money is coming into your pot. That's what we're talking about here. And in some cases, such as the second question, they're saying, could it be 4,000? The answer to that is, that really does depend on a couple of things, and that is in relation to how much discretionary spending you're doing now and how much surplus you've got now, because it's that surplus and the borrowing power that's allowing us to leverage an accelerated strategy. So that is important. Not everyone's going to be able to get to $4,000 per week, because They may not have that surplus to start with because they wanted to have families and so forth. So all of those things are costs, but it's about living your purposeful life. Don't worry about what other people are doing, what's important to you based on your personal goals and your personal values. But it is plausible that you can get yourself to a situation where you could achieve that, but there's also a bit more risk associated with that as well. So that's why we keep it relatively simple and what we would consider low to moderate risk. There is still moderate risk in there because you're taking on debt, but we also want to buy assets that we think are in good locations that are at low risk of going backwards, but have a high probability of going forward over 10, 15, 20, 25 years, Bryce.
Very good point, Ben, because there's a couple of things to add there, isn't there? That lending is harder in the 2020s than it was in the 2010s, than it was in the 90s. But just to give people a mental anchor, for someone who wants 2K a week, they need $2.5 million worth of income producing assets outside of the family home. Assuming that was fully paid off, returning 4% per annum, just from the property. Obviously, we talked about super as well, contributing to that. But just to give them a mental anchor, Ben, if you feel that you're in a position to get a net position of 2.5 M, that's going to give you the 2K. But if you feel like you're resourced, you have the discipline, you have the risk tolerance to get you 5 million net in your portfolio at 4%, that'll give you the 4K. So just so you know what it actually means, because we all have aspiration to have as much as possible, Ben. Well, not all of us, that was a big statement, but we'd all love to design the best life that we can and obviously fund it with as much cash flow as possible. But just so that people know that lending's tougher, we are get rich slow, and for a lot of people, taking on 5 to 8 properties is uncomfortable. But if someone can see that it can be done between 2 and 4, sometimes 5, more and more people can start to go, well, I can actually see that working for me. I can see that actually could happen for me. So the answer, you answered it very well. It depends, and it depends on a couple of things.
That's what we're trying to say here. It's basically, how do we stop you from working for the rest of your life so you can enjoy that? Well, you need to build up a nest egg. And obviously we have a clear bias towards residential property, existing residential property in good locations with sensible gearing that are stress tested by detailed cash flow analysis in the short, medium and long term to be able to execute on that. And that's basically how we position this story.
Very good, Ben. The last thing I want to make about this question is hopefully some people might have just had an aha moment then, Ben. Let's assume someone has a household income of $2,000 per week right now. And so therefore they think, oh, I need to replace my income of $2,000 a week. But if they've just had an aha moment where what we've just talked about, where there's no more mortgage payment, there's no more commuting to work, so they might actually be able to live very comfortably, Ben, on what you just said at 70, which is overs, which all of a sudden they might just go, well, actually, I don't have to shoot for $2,000 a week. I might only have to shoot for 1.5, or I might actually only need to shoot for $1,000 a week, Ben. And then all of a sudden we can start to break down and chip away at some of these beliefs that people may have that they will never be financially secure, that this will never work for them. Because all of a sudden, if you go, well, if I only need $52,000, that's $1,000 a week. Actually, I could actually see that happening for myself. And then as you get through the process, you might actually find that you get a head of steam up, and you might actually achieve $2,000 a week, Ben.
And Bryce, then it's maybe only 1 or 2 properties in addition to the compulsory super that you're being, and it's like, hey, that's achievable. What we don't want people to think it's got to be, 3, 4 or 5 properties to get to the 100,000. That's why it's different for every case, and it's unique to their circumstances. But I'm sure we're going to get questions on that as well.